secretturf.com.
Sri Lanka, known for its pristine beaches, sprawling tea plantations, mighty elephants, majestic sunsets, and cricket. It's not just the country's most popular sport, it's a practiced passion. When locals aren't on the field themselves, they are watching their revered national team. Among the squad's ranks is Kumar Sangakkara, former captain, fierce batsman, and some say arguably one of the best Sri Lankan players of all time.
You know, he's probably the hardest worker in the team. Given his stats, he scored 10,000 runs each in Test and ODIs, and that's a great achievement.
Currently ranked #1 Test batsman in the world by the ICC, Sangakkara's career is full of impressive statistics. He has a batting average just shy of 60 from his 128 tests. He's notched up 10 double centuries, second only to the great Don Bradman. He led his team to the World Cup final in 2011. And just this year, lifted the World 2020 trophy in Dhaka. This month on Talk Asia, we visit the mecca of cricket in Sri Lanka to meet one of the game's greats, to find out why his love of the sport trumped his career as a lawyer, and discover how his country's history moulded him as a player and a man.
And I remember driving down the traffic in Colombo, and sometimes you stop at a red light and you're always thinking, what if a bomb goes off now?
Well, Kumar Sangakkara, welcome to Talk Asia.
Thank you very much.
You are considered one of Sri Lanka's greatest batsmen. You're a national icon. You are an incredible ambassador for your country and for the game. Do you feel pressure being a role model to so many people?
It's a sport followed with a lot of passion, but in Sri Lanka it's just a little bit more than a sport. We're crazy about it, but in times of strife, cricket's been an amazing panacea for the country. That said, being a role model, carrying myself well on the field and off the field, it's something not just myself, but the entire team really takes a lot of pride in.
You've said that cricket is more than just a sport, and I guess that really rings true, considering what your country has been through, the 30 years of civil war, and it was cricket that brought the country together.
Yeah, it was, definitely. Cricket's played a pivotal role in social integration and harmony. And we've also represented, an ideal Sri Lanka. The team itself comprises of all ethnicities, all religions. In the cricket team, it's been that same kind of utopian feel where you play together, you win or lose together. And I think that's been kind of a very attractive notion to the larger Sri Lankan society. And to see through the cricket team on the cricket field carrying their hopes on their shoulders, I think that's really inspired the society to embrace us and also kind of aspire to a higher ideal.
Well, let's talk about your stats because they are phenomenal. You are currently ranked #1 Test batsman in the world by the ICC, a position that you've dominated since 2005. You played 128 tests with a batting average of 58.76, which, let's face it, is incredibly high. You've made 10 double centuries, only second to the great Don Bradman. You're also a brilliant wicketkeeper, contributing to the third highest number of dismissals for a one-day international. Anything else you want to achieve?
Well, I think there's always something to chase. If there isn't, I think that's the day you've got to pack up and walk away. In my case, I'm chasing a World Cup. I have 6 months within which to prepare and achieve one before I finish with the game. But stats aside, I think I've been very, very lucky.
Well, you're clearly a world-class athlete with an incredible skill set, but how do you get that good?
Well, it's just a case of working a bit hard, day in, day out.
Hard work, is that what you put it down to?
Well, I think so, and also I think it's talent and potential. Everyone's got talent, everyone's got potential. You've got to really find a method and a strategy that really works for you to kind of realize, that potential, at least not fully maybe, but at least to some extent that allows you to be successful.
Now, I understand that you came into cricket by accident. Is that true?
Yes. When it comes to actual cricket, I was quite a late starter. I see kids now at 7 and 8, starting cricket. I started when I was about 12, 13, but seriously switched when I was about 16, 17. And I was, like I said, I was lucky. Sri Lanka's greatest achievement was the 1996 World Cup win. The same side went to England in 1999, and we got knocked out in the first round. The entirety of Sri Lanka was disappointed, but that was the one piece of luck that I needed for my career. It's a bit crude to say it, but it's actually true, because the moment they got knocked out, there was a huge call for younger players, young blood. We need to get rid of the old guard. So suddenly I was carried along with that wave, and I suddenly replaced an iconic player, Romesh Kalavitharana, in the Sri Lankan side. So in my life, the unfortunate incident of us getting knocked out was probably the most favourable for me.
Because you had been studying law at university, following in your father's footsteps, as well as playing cricket. But it was Sri Lanka's 1996 cricket World Cup victory that, I guess, cemented your decision that you wanted to play for your country.
Yeah, that inspired me to kind of think that I could play. I wanted to play. But then I really looked at myself as a player, and I knew that I was far below the expected standard. I wasn't even spoken of in the same breath. I came into my own when I was about 21, just before I broke into the national side. So studying law, all of these were options I had to take, because I myself thought I wasn't good enough. And until I got into the national side, and I really struggled to really believe that I was able to stand up to what was expected of me, or to be able to do what needed to be done as an international cricketer.
You were heading to the stadium in Lahore when 12 gunmen opened fire on the bus that you were travelling in.
I was hit in the shoulder, but there was I don't think I was thinking anything other than the fact that, just keep your head down and hopefully you won't get hit. And even if you do, like I said, hopefully not in the head.
Gritturf.com.
I think sports a lot about skill, especially if in a team perspective. It's about working together, trying to buy into a common strategy, personal ownership when it comes to that strategy, and trying to achieve a particular goal. And also the pride one feels to be selected out of 20 million people, to be one of 15, to be able to just play sport at a national level, at an international level, represent the country, win World Cups. It's an amazing thing that you don't have time, you don't have the need to think of anything that's divisive. It's actually a very strong unifying force. Not just cricket, I think any sport in any part of the world plays a similar role. We feel it a bit more because of our immediate past history. But it's a beautiful game as well, cricket. It's got a lot of high moral ideals embedded in the sport. We have the unwritten spirit of cricket laws, where you play hard, you play fair, but you try and display everything that's good and human about yourself out there. It's changing with the intensity of the competition rising. But I think all these attributes make cricket and the role of cricket in Sri Lanka very unique.
You grew up in Kandy in a high-achieving family, the youngest of 4. Your father was an attorney. Your father is quite a tough critic. I read an interview from last year where he said that you can do better. I mean, is it that mentality that drives you?
Not exactly. I'm quite different in my way of thinking when it comes to that. He's very exacting. Better, he doesn't mean in terms of performance per se. It's also to do with the way I play the game, in the sense of technique. He's a great believer in perfection. I'm a believer in excellence. So we have this eternal argument on this. But I think the way he looks at it is very simple. If you are in control of what you do, then it is your responsibility to ensure that you explore the avenues that you have to become as close to perfect as possible.
Well, speaking of your father, he certainly showed amazing conviction and strength of character back in 1983, which was the start of the civil war, which would plague Sri Lanka for the next 30 years. He and your mother took in 35 Tamil friends who would have otherwise been killed. I know you were just a child at the time, but how did that shape your values and your beliefs?
I don't know whether otherwise they would have been killed or not, but at that time security was a concern, and they were friends. There was no label attached to them. They were just some of our closest friends. I think it was an amazing thing to do. I look back upon it now, and I think they just displayed some of the characteristics that they've tried to inculcate in us: just common decency, courtesy, respect, and love.
When you look back at the Civil War and the violence and the suicide bombings, how does that make you feel, knowing what your country endured for so long?
Well, you go through a whole gamut of different emotions. You feel the sadness, the anger, the frustration, the what might have been. All of these emotions and questions go through your mind. But you have to be realistic as well. It was a dark time for our country. A lot of people paid the ultimate price with their lives for that conflict, and in that conflict there was a whole generation of children who grew up with that constant threat of war and the suicide bombings, not just in the south but in the north and the east as well. And all over Sri Lanka there was a pervasive atmosphere of fear and foreboding. And I remember driving down the traffic in Colombo, and sometimes you stop at a red light and you're always thinking, what if a bomb goes off now? It's strange, but you look at Sri Lanka now, I look at my children now, and to not have that fear, to send them to school, knowing that there is very little threat, and I'm very, very thankful and grateful for that. There's a lot to do in terms of work to raise Sri Lanka up to where we want Sri Lanka to be, but I think there's an immensely strong foundation now set, and hopefully lessons learned.
Well, 3rd of March 2009, you and your team are in Pakistan on a tour after India and Australia had decided not to go due to security concerns. You were heading to the stadium in Lahore when 12 gunmen opened fire on the bus that you were travelling in. Talk us through that terrifying experience.
When we were in that situation, we had no time to really be scared. We were heading into, I think, the 3rd day of the test match. I remember one of our fast bowlers making the comment, I hope something happens so we can just go home. And not even 20 seconds later, we hear gunshots, and we are asked to just hit the deck, which we did. And there's nothing else you can do, really. You're not in control of anything else. You're not driving the bus, you're not part of the security convoy. Unfortunately, there's 6 security personnel in front in one of our covered jeeps, I think, were wiped out in about 10 seconds. A couple of the other outriders on bikes were also killed. And then we were just at a standstill, being shot at.
What was going through your mind? Because you were hit. You were one of 6 players who was hit.
I was hit in the shoulder. And another teammate, Tilan Samaraveer, was next to me, was seriously injured when a bullet went through the back of his thigh and all the way up to his knee. But I don't think I was thinking anything other than the fact that, just keep your head down and hopefully you won't get hit. And even if you do, like I said, hopefully not in the head. But it's also humbling that people really felt for us. I met an army personnel manning a roadblock after I came back, and he stopped my vehicle. And it's such a dangerous job, because if they stop the correct vehicle carrying explosives, that's the end of not just his job but his life. So he stopped me, and then he recognized me and he said, I'm so sorry, how are you? And I said, I'm fine. He said, we were so upset when you got shot and then the team was being attacked. And I said, but you go through that every day. And he looked at me and said, yes, but you guys are heroes. And I'm thinking, I felt so touched and so moved that he's a real hero, putting his life on the line every day in the service of his country. And then he looks at us and he feels so much empathy and compassion towards us. I think that was really made me feel very, very happy that I was Sri Lankan living in this country.
Coming up, Sangakkara lets us in on whether retirement is really on the cards.
So that's a yes. We've got the scoop.
Crickturf.com.
After 1996, the Cricket Board has been controlled and administered by a handful of well-meaning individuals, either personally or by proxy, rotated in and out depending on appointment or election. Unfortunately, to consolidate and perpetuate their powers, they opened the door of the administration to partisan cronies that would lead to corruption and wanton waste of Cricket Board finances and resources. It was and still is confusing.
You were invited to give the Cowdrey Lecture at Lords, and you spoke with such eloquence and passion and pride and authority. But you did rock the boat. Was that your intention?
No, my intention was not to rock the boat, but my intention was, that was part of my story. And it was not a huge secret. It was about 4 lines out of a talk that lasted about 57 minutes. And it was also very constructive, the 4 lines that I spoke about. And I don't think anyone had to get upset. And the fact is that the large majority did not get upset or didn't view it negatively at all. My story was about Sri Lankan cricket, and not just about playing the game, but what makes us Sri Lankan and how we play the game in a Sri Lankan manner. And how much pride I take in the fact that I am Sri Lankan, that I'm part of this wonderful sport in this wonderful country, being able to do what I love every day and bring so much joy to so many people.
Well, it certainly was a brilliant speech, if I say so.
Thank you.
But in those 4 lines, where you probably did ruffle some feathers, you spoke about corruption and greed within the Sri Lankan Cricket Board. Were there repercussions for you?
No, there weren't repercussions that affected me personally at all. I think there were discussions had with me, and I was able to answer every single question very, very directly and very truthfully. And I think once they saw the fact that in the larger context of my speech, even those 4 lines were actually constructive, I think they all understood that it was nothing to be worried about.
Now, you made the Cricket World Cup final in 2007 against Australia and lost. 2009, I'll rub that in. 2009, you became captain and led your country to the World Cup final against India. Again, you lost. To come so close to victory and fail twice, was that crushing?
Well, I think I'll actually say 4 times, because 2007 was the 50-over World Cup final. 2009 we got to the T20 World Cup finals. 2011 was again the 50-over World Cup final, and 2012 again the T20 World Cup final. So 4 finals we lost. I always think that it's better to lose in the preliminary rounds rather than get to the finals. The moment you get to the finals, the expectations are such that losing is devastating. It's really crushing.
Kumar, why did you resign from the captaincy after the World Cup in 2011?
When I took over the assignment in 2009, when the former captain Mahela Jayawardena resigned, I knew for a fact that mine was a 2-year term. The 2011 World Cup was my goal, and once that was over, I was pretty much set. 6 months before the World Cup, I had already informed the selectors of my decision to step down. At the same time, I had issues with the fact of the way I was able to lead my team and to be able to have a certain sense of independence to do what I thought was right. So I didn't want to end up being frustrated as the captain of the side, because I don't think that's a healthy place to be. And I think there were also other suitable candidates for that particular job.
Word is that you will retire from the game after the World Cup, which will be hosted by Australia and New Zealand next year. Is this true?
I've been contemplating it. I've retired from T20 cricket. I'm playing 2 formats of the game. I think my one-day career is definitely done after the World Cup. And even if I extend my career a year onwards from here, I only play another 7 to 9 test matches. So I've really got to sit down with the selectors, especially with Sanajay Surya, and really discuss whether that's a worthwhile thing for the team. So I think that's a tough ask. So maybe with the consent of the selectors, it might be the World Cup and nothing beyond.
So that's a yes. We've got the scoop.
I wouldn't say you have the scoop, but I will tell you that it is something that I'm seriously thinking of.
There are concerns about the future of Sri Lankan cricket once you retire, as well as the likes of Mahila, Dilshan, Malinga, countries that have lost their awesome foursome, which is fundamentally what you boys are. They have to go back to the building blocks and start over again. Is that a concern for Sri Lanka?
No, that's just a reality of playing sport. That's it. Every once in a while you get players who kind of dominate, and you get, in Sri Lanka we've had players year after year doing this. So I don't think we're anything special. We've done our job pretty well for the country, and now it's a turn of other people to take their responsibility up. And looking at the bench strength we have, they're more than capable of not just matching us, but I think some of these guys will do much better than we've done.
You mentioned the World Cup next year and what that would mean to Sri Lanka and to you.
Well,
do you think it's possible?
Yeah, it's possible, definitely. Will we be ready for it? Yes, we will be. I hate being the soothsayer, trying to tell you what will happen in that World Cup, but we're going to give it our best shot, without a doubt. We have the variety in our makeup to really compete. We've just got to ensure that we're up to it every single game we play. Let's wait and see. It'll be huge.
Well, we certainly wish you the very best of luck. Kumar Sangakkara, an absolute pleasure to meet you.
Likewise.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you.
Sangha is a classy player, not only classy, he was a very educated.
I love Sangakkara!